So, you heard about org mode from all those Emacs nerds, and you're kind of wondering what it is. Well, if so, this is the video for you. Today we're going to go over what org mode is, some of the cool tricks you can do with it, and a quick tutorial on how to get you started with it. So, to start off, what is org mode? I'm not going to try and explain it. I'm just going to try and show you what org mode can do. And as an example, this is my doom.org file, which is my Doom Emacs config. One of the coolest features of org mode is the ability to navigate really big files very easily. I'm going to scroll through this, and hopefully you notice this is a very long file, almost 2,000 lines, and this is the entirety of it. But with org mode, we can collapse the entirety of the file into its top-level headings and into the constituent lower-level headings, so we see the structure of it without all of the content. This makes it really easy to navigate and much easier than normal documents. Normal documents like PDFs may only give you a table of contents with which to navigate, but with org mode, we can just collapse everything and hide and show different components of it at will, which makes it really easy to stay organized and see what's going on. Now, that's pretty cool, but what else? Another really cool feature of org mode is the ability to mark certain pieces of your org files as to-do items and schedule them so that they appear in a to-do list for you. And we call this to-do list the org agenda. And after some configuring, you could get it to look something like this, where it gives you a nice clean overview of all of the tasks that you need to accomplish for the day. All of these tasks can be spread amongst multiple org files, multiple different notes, and then org agenda collects them all together into this nice overview so that you can see what to do. Another super awesome feature of org mode is the extensibility of links. You'd expect any note-taking software to be able to handle links to things like websites and files. Like, for example, here I have a link to the official org mode website, which works nicely. But links inside of org mode are so much more than this. With links in org mode, you can do arbitrary things, like this one that I have here on my dashboard for my YouTube notes. This is the new video project link, but it's really not a link, it's more of a button. And what happens when I click this link is it runs a function that I wrote, a script that I wrote, that creates all of the template files that I would need for a new video project. So say I want to do a video on org mode again, say org mode 2. I just run this function, and this just made a template note file for me. It made a template project folder for me, and it made a template Kdenlive file for me, all nice and neatly organized into this new org note for me. So the links in org mode are super highly extensible, and as you learn more and more about Emacs and eList, there's endless possibilities with these. So those are, I think, 3 really cool features of org mode that make it highly extensible, and that's not all there is, but this is a good starting point. So how do we get started with this then? Well, first things first, you want to install Emacs, and if you're totally new to Emacs, I would recommend a distribution of Emacs. Like the one I'm using right here is Doom Emacs, but there are several others. Spacemacs is another one. So pick a distribution of Emacs to get started with and start learning. Once you have Emacs installed and you open it up, one of the key ways to interact with Emacs is using meta-X or alt-X, because in Emacs speak, the meta key is the alt key. So if you type meta-X, we can now type in the name of a function, in which case we're going to be using find-file, which allows you to find a file that already exists or make a new file. So in this case, I'm going to be using examplefile.org, which I already made, to show you some of these tricks. So the first section we talked about were the headings. This is the organization of the org document itself. You make a heading in org mode using asterisks. One asterisk followed by a space will be a top-level heading, or heading 1. If you have 2 asterisks followed by a space, that's going to be heading 2. And you can imagine where this is going. 3 will be heading 3, and so on and so on. This will get you your default structure, and of course, underneath any of these, you can just write normal text, and that works. To save this file then, all we're going to have to do is call one more function, which is save buffer. And in pretty much all forms of Emacs, there's a quick key binding for this that I use, which is Control-X, Control-S. Now, the collapsing and folding functionality that we looked at is another function. So meta-X, this one's called org-cycle, and that will toggle this collapsing, folding functionality of your headings. But you can imagine it's really annoying to just run meta-X and then type it out every single time you want to collapse or uncollapse something. So by default, this is bound to the tab key. And this is another thing that as you learn more about Emacs and configuring your Emacs setup, you can bind any of these functions to a particular key so that you don't have to be typing it out using meta-X every single time you want to access a function. I'm just showing you the names of all the functions so that you can find them easily, and then later on in your configuration, add your own custom keybind later if you want. But anyways, that will allow us to see the structure and collapse the headings in our org files. The next part that we got to talk about is org agenda. And org agenda is going to require a bit of setup in the configuration. So whatever Emacs distribution you're using, whether it's Doom, Spacemacs, Vanilla Emacs, or something else entirely, go and find your configuration file. If you don't know where it is, just ask, a search engine, where is the configuration file for such and such Emacs distribution, and then go and find the file. And if it's not there, make it. Odds are it's going to be a .el file, which is Emacs Lisp. So in order to start with org agenda, we need to set a variable called org agenda files. You can look at all of the variables inside of Emacs by running another function called describe variable. And this will allow you to see what all the variables are. So this one we're looking at right now is called org agenda files. And this sort of tells you a bit about it. And there it is. So the way that we set variables inside of the configuration will look something like this. So inside of your actual configuration, you don't need this source block. Don't worry about that. Just inside of your configuration, you're going to have to write code that looks like this. So we're going to write parentheses to start a new line or a new command. And we're going to use a function called setQ. What are we setting? Well, we're going to set the org agenda files variable, and we want to set it to something that will make sense for the setup. What most people start out doing when they're starting with org mode and org agenda is they make a single directory that has all of their org agenda files. So something like this, for example, an agenda folder, and then they put a bunch of org files in there and use that as their agenda. If you want to go with that setup, you're going to need to add this kind of configuration to it. So we're making a list, so that's apostrophe and then parentheses, and then we're going to give the name of that directory the agenda directory. So what this would do then, if we ran this, is it would make it so that every single org file inside of the agenda directory would be included in the org agenda. If you want to add a specific file, so for example, I have this example file.org, you can also add that just by adding a space and adding in the name of that file. So it's very versatile. You can have as many as you want here in this list. And if you want to activate this change immediately, you can move to the rightmost parentheses for this command and type Control X, Control E. That will activate the function. It'll run it in the current working space. And as long as this is in your configuration, it should be running at runtime the next time you open Emacs. So with that set up, then in those files, what you can do is give a to-do keyword to a heading. So it might be something like this: to-do, and then the name of whatever it is. Now this, by default, still will not show up in the org agenda. If we open it, we can open the org agenda using org agenda list, and that still won't show up. And the reason why is because it is not scheduled. There are 3 ways to schedule an event or to-do item or task inside of org mode. And the first way is called schedule. This is for tasks that you have to get done. We can schedule it using another function called org schedule. And then you can select a date and even put in a time. Say I want to work out at 3 p.m. and then hit enter, and you'll see it will be scheduled. And now if we go and run org agenda list again, it will appear on the agenda. That's the first way of having it appear on the agenda. The thing with the scheduled tag is if I don't complete this today, tomorrow it'll tell me that it's overdue and that I still need to complete it. So how is it that we mark these to-do items as completed? The way that you do this is essentially just by changing the to-do keyword from to-do to done. And this can get really annoying, and you can't actually do this while you're looking at the org agenda. So of course we have a function for this, and the function here is called org to do. When you press it, it will open up this menu on the bottom that has keys associated with the specific keywords. So you just press the key associated with the word that you want. I have a ton of these, like to do, project, loop, start, wait, so on and so on. I think in vanilla Emacs, by default, you only get to do and done, but you can customize these. So running org to do, I could specify this as done by pressing D, and I could toggle it as not complete by just going back and marking it as to do, like so. Another method of having an agenda item appear is to set it as a deadline. So this is going to be with the org deadline function. And so this is very similar. You can set it to be a deadline at a certain day and time. Maybe I need to work out by next week Saturday at 3 p.m. or something bad will happen. And with this, because it's a deadline, it will warn you about it in advance. And then on the actual day of, it will tell you that it is an actual deadline. The amount of time it gives you as warning can be customized by going to the end here and typing in minus followed by a identifier for how long it is. So say I want it to be reminded only 2 days before. This would make it so that I see it the Thursday before, I see it the Friday before, and I see it that Saturday, but I'm not going to be seeing it any earlier than that. If I wanted to see this 2 weeks before, that would be 2 weeks, 2W. Months would be M, and years would be Y. And if you're going more than that, just put it in years. So those are deadlines. The last way to schedule a to-do item is not necessarily for to-do items. It's more for events. So maybe if we change this to some sort of event, like attend party, this will make more sense. Now the last kind then is called a timestamp. And a timestamp is created with org-time-stamp. And it's similar to these ones, except it's not scheduled or a deadline as a normal quote-unquote to-do item. This is more for calendar events. Let's say I'm scheduling this party and it starts at 6 p.m. tonight. I could put in 6 p.m. and now it doesn't say scheduled or deadline, it just shows the time, and it would then appear on the org agenda as such. But what if I want to specify how long the party goes until? In this case, you can run the exact same org-time-stamp function, but you just give it a range, like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And this will put it in correctly, and it will now appear on the org agenda as a 2-hour thing that you have to attend. And just as a side note, these don't necessarily have to have the to-do keyword now. You can actually remove that, and it's not like a to-do item, like I check it off my task list to attend the party. It's just, it's a party, and it's on my calendar now. So those are the 3 ways of setting your items to appear on org agenda. And as you get good with managing these and you get a bunch of things together, it can be really easy to go through these and resort them and see what you have to do in the day. Once, of course, you set up some key bindings for all of these, because again, having to type metax and then put the actual function into there and then run it, that's really, really slow. It's way, way quicker to just be using keybinds like this or like this. It just goes way, way quicker. So you'll definitely want to learn how to configure key bindings on your particular setup. The last thing we're going to look at then are links. And links are very important for any note-taking system. So how do links work in org mode? For a standard link, the way the link is written is either like this or like this. And to show you really what's going on here, I'm going to turn off org mode. In this first case, this is just a raw link. So if we typed in, for example, youtube.com, this would show the actual link in the org file, and it would take you to that exact link when you click on it. This other kind, then, is where we give it an actual link, say youtube.com again, then we give it a description like YouTube. And this would appear as YouTube, but it would actually take us to the youtube.com URL. Now you might be wondering, isn't that annoying to just type in these brackets every single time you want a link? Of course it is. So we have a function to insert links, and it's called org insert link. So we can use that with metax again, and when you do that, you will notice that there are tons and tons and tons of different kinds of links. And there's so many links that there's not enough time here to go over what each link means. Notable links include the file link, the image link, and as we looked at earlier, eLisp links, which allow you to write arbitrary code into your link and have it run it every time you click the link. But that will sort of help you get going, so you can at least get a few, say, bookmarked websites as link lists, or you may want to add links to certain files in some of your org note files. And so that's a very useful tool, being able to link in all sorts of different manners. So I hope that was a good introduction to Emacs. With Emacs, one of the things you probably are realizing right now is that it is very complicated. But since it is so complicated and everything about it is exposed to you, it is very, very highly customizable. I would encourage you to take a look at Emacs and org mode and try it out. Try configuring it a little bit here and there. See if you start to understand the philosophy behind org mode and Emacs. As you learn more and more about Emacs, you'll realize how big of a productivity tool it can be, because you can optimize and customize your workflow to be exactly what you need it to be and do things super, super quickly. So I hope you liked the video today. I hope it was a good introduction and that it got you going. I'll probably do a few more videos on some more Emacs topics, some Emacs packages, a few more Emacs-like videos. So if you liked what you saw, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you disliked the video, please leave a dislike and comment down below letting me know why you disliked the video. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day.